Okay, so the media allows the president to have direct access to the public, and we've stated that before, particularly broadcast media giving the president direct access to the media, but also we need to talk about social media. Um, when we looked at newspaper, remember the president, what the president did was covered, and they would report about it, occasionally quoting him, but they never print exactly what he said. Long speeches, all that sort of thing weren't printed. It was quotes, paraphrases, and then a general reporting about the president. With broadcast media, radio and TV, presidents could communicate directly to the American people. However, that was still edited or controlled or limited by the news editors of the various networks. There's only so much time available, so much space during a news broadcast that you want to talk about the presidency. But with social media, presidents don't even need to go through news editors. They can speak directly to the American people unfiltered, and they can craft their message any way they want. Uh, Most recently, President Trump has made great use of Twitter, definitely during the campaign and during the transition when he was president-elect. And in the first few weeks of his office, he's definitely done a lot of things with Twitter. What remains to be seen is, will he continue that? Will he do it himself? Will he turn that over to somebody else, such as a communication director or someone else in the White House? An important person to understand, a role that relates to the president of media, is the press secretary. The press secretary is a member of the White House staff and has the responsibility for interacting with the press and keeping the press up to date as to what the president's doing. Press secretaries help the presidents craft their media message and help them shape and maintain their media persona. Other considerations regarding the President of the United States. First thing is, the original text of the Constitution doesn't really say too terribly much about the president. The founders of the United States spent a lot of time and a lot of pages dealing with what Congress could and could not do, but it spent significantly less time dealing with what the president was going to be able to do. So the way this has evolved is that presidential power, it's what you make it. There's different views on this. There's the stewardship view and the constitutional view, and a presidential scholar by the name of Barber. He did a lot of work on different personas in the presidency, what it leads the president to do. But the most important thing to remember is that presidential power, as stated in the Constitution, is vague. And therefore, in essence, it's what the individual makes of it. All presidents of the United States have been governed by virtually identical text in the Constitution, but not all presidents have been equally powerful. Presidents bring with them views as to what the office should be, whether they should use the powers of the office aggressively, or they should look for permission in the Constitution to do something and be more of a passive actor. Also, the nature of the society and world events shape the power and the impact of a president. I think you'd have to kind of ask, would FDR have been as great a president as he was if it wasn't during the time of the Great Depression and World War II? 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution limits the president to no more than 2 terms. This was passed in the 1960s. In an attempt to make sure that nobody else could be like Roosevelt. Historically, presidents either limited themselves or were limited by the voters to no more than 2 terms. However, FDR broke this tradition, and we have instituted it into law with the passage of the 22nd Amendment. 25th Amendment to the Constitution provides for several things. First off, it provides for a way to get a new person to be vice president. What typically has happened upon the death or resignation of a president is that the vice president became president. That was our assumption. The Constitution never said that. It simply said that the duties devolved to the vice president. So the 22nd Amendment goes ahead and says that the vice president actually becomes president. But the original text of the Constitution didn't provide for any way to fill a vacancy in the office of vice president. There are various laws that were passed that created a line of succession beyond that. Originally, it was from vice president, then after that, Senate President pro tempore, then Speaker. And in the early 1900s, this was changed to Speaker and then Senate President pro tempore. Well, the 25th Amendment provides a way to fill that vacancy, and this is done through a presidential appointment that has to be approved, interestingly enough, by both houses. So it's the only presidential appointment that requires confirmation of both houses. The 25th Amendment also provides for a way to temporarily transfer power from a president to a vice president. For example, if the president is disabled, but for only temporarily, the power could be transferred to the vice president and later reclaimed by the president. Vice president. The Constitution of the United States provides for a position of vice president. However, this position was almost an afterthought. During the Constitutional Convention, the vice presidency really wasn't put into the text of the Constitution until toward the end of the convention. Somebody realized that what are you going to do if the president dies or is impeached and so forth. So the position of vice president was created. Then the next logical question is, how are we going to pick this person? And what originally happened was the person was the number 2 person. You had the person who won the election becoming president. The person who got the second most amount of votes became vice president. With the passage of the 12th Amendment, this was changed so that the president and the vice president, in essence, run as a ticket. Today, presidents seek to have someone run with them who will balance the ticket. The vice president is the position of or a candidate for vice president. The idea is to try to unite the party, balance the ticket, and add appeal to the voters. Nobody seriously wants a vice president, or typically nobody wants a vice president to provide expertise to the office, even though that's what they may say. You can hire all the experts you want. What you're concerned about when you're running for president and looking for a vice president or running mate is a way to get elected. The duties of the vice president are really pretty limited. The Constitution only prescribes presiding over the Senate and assisting during times of presidential disability. That's pretty much it for the vice president. Typically what presidents do with their vice president is they send them to foreign countries to be goodwill ambassadors. They handle some ceremonial functions and so forth. Increasingly, though, presidents in modern times have used the vice president more of a policymaker or an advocate in the Senate. That's if the vice president has served in the Senate. Well, I'm going to back up. It's a common mistake of many people, and particularly many students, to think that the vice president, as president of the Senate, has significant power. He doesn't. The vice president's power in the Senate is incredibly limited. The vice president has the authority to preside over the Senate. However, the Senate's rules, which they have the authority to make, do not vest that position with very much discretionary authority. The vice president has the authority to break a tie in the Senate. However, this rarely happens. So the vice president, as a significant power player in the Senate, based upon rules or the Constitution, is greatly limited. However, if the vice president has served in the Senate, then that person can act in essence as a lobbyist for the president and the president's administration. Whenever a position is vacated, the president has the authority to appoint a replacement to the members of the executive branch, to the members of the judiciary, and typically these appointments require Senate confirmation. However, if the vacancy is created during a recess of the Senate, the president has the ability to temporarily appoint someone, and that appointment lasts until the adjournment of the next Senate. So the president has the ability to temporarily fill positions that are or vacancies that are created during the absence of the Senate. When we think about the President of the United States, it's really instructive to think about it as an institution and not necessarily an individual. The role of the president is so much that one person really can't handle it. Now, obviously, presidential power is vested in one person, and obviously one person is in charge, but one person working by himself cannot manage the scope of the office. So to assist that person in his capacity as president, there are several organizations. The most important of which is what is called the White House staff. The White House staff, or White House office, is the chief advisory group to the president. Let me say that one more time. The White House staff is the chief advisory group to the president, not the cabinet. The cabinet is not a real advisory group to the president. It hasn't been since the 1930s. This is not to say that certain cabinet members are not important. However, the cabinet as an advisory group to the president has been largely supplanted by White House staff. The White House staff, along with a larger organization, executive office of the president, represent the true advisors to the president. The executive office of the president is an umbrella organization that consists of several different entities, such as National Security Council, Office of Management and Budget, Office of Policy Development, and several other offices that assist the president in his capacity as president. Last thing, lame duck. The term lame duck refers to a president who has either been defeated in his bid for re-election or has served 2 terms and is not eligible to be re-elected. It specifically refers to that time period after the new president has been elected, but before that person takes office. So during that time period, we have someone in waiting who is ready to assume the duties of the office, but that time period from the first week in November till January 20th, the old president is still in office. Increasingly, we also use this term to refer to a president who may be in his second term, particularly after his midterm election of a second term, because everybody is immediately looking for who is going to run, who potentially could be elected, and so forth. So the lame duck refers to a president who is essentially on his way out and is losing rapidly political power and clout in the political system.